Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'll be showing you how to diagnose, test, and adjust your fuel pressure in your car or truck. Now the symptoms of bad fuel pressure issues are a hard start, no start condition, a rough idle, and even a rich and lean condition that can lead to failing state emissions testing. The truck I'm using in this video is my wife's 95 Ford Bronco that is running a bit lean, and we'll get to that reason later on in this video. And the testing we will be doing today will help you determine whether your fuel pump, pressure regulator, or injectors are bad. So let's get started. Now before we begin, you will need a fuel pressure tester, a vacuum gauge, and a jumper wire. Now to get started, check the fuel pressure regulator to see if it will hold a vacuum. So remove the vacuum line from the fuel pressure regulator and install the vacuum pump. Now pull about 10 inches of vacuum. If the pressure regulator can hold the vacuum, then proceed to the next step. If it does not hold the vacuum at all, then replace the pressure regulator. Next, connect your vacuum gauge to the pressure regulator vacuum supply coming from the intake manifold. Now start the engine and notice how much vacuum you have. You should have about 15 inches of vacuum. If you do, you can proceed to the next step. If not, you'll have to repair the vacuum line. We got some of the basic testing done, but it is time now to connect the fuel pressure gauge. You may need an adapter to connect it to the fuel rail, but it should come with the kit. For this next step, you will need to locate your diagnostic plug, which on this truck it's located in this corner here. Then you will need to ground your fuel pump terminal to any one of these ground locations on the frame here. This will allow the fuel pump to continuously run with the ignition turned on, so that we can test the fuel pressure. With everything connected, go ahead and turn on the ignition, but do not start the engine. You should hear the fuel pump buzzing. If not, check for 12 volts at the fuel pump electrical connector. If you do have 12 volts, then the fuel pump is bad. If you do not have 12 volts at the fuel pump connector, then check the fuel pump circuit wiring, relays, and fuses. If the pump is running, check for the amount of fuel pressure in a key on, engine off situation. You should have about 35 to 45 psi. If the fuel pressure is too low, check the fuel filter for clogging. If the fuel filter is clogged, replace the fuel filter. Now check the fuel pressure again. If it's still too low, you can pinch the fuel return line with a clamp. And be sure to pinch the return line at the rubber hose. The pressure should spike on the gauge. If it does, replace the fuel pressure regulator. And if the fuel pressure is still low, then likely you have a bad fuel pump. In some cases, you may have leaky injectors. And to test that theory, you'll have to turn off the ignition, pinch both the return and pressure lines, and be sure when you're pinching both hoses to pinch them for a short amount of time to avoid any damage. And if the pressure still leaks down, that is a sign that you have leaky injectors. Now if the fuel pressure is too high, remove the vacuum line from the pressure regulator, and if you smell fuel, that means the fuel pressure regulator is bad and needs to be replaced. Now if the fuel pressure is within the acceptable range, go ahead and turn off the ignition. Remove the fuel pump jumper wire and start the engine. The fuel pressure should drop with the engine running. The acceptable range is between 30 to 45 psi for these engines. If the fuel pressure is too high, then the fuel pressure regulator is bad and needs to be replaced. The truck is running at about 30 psi, which is on the lower end of the acceptable range, and it is definitely running a bit lean. For the last test, shut down the engine and notice if the fuel pressure bleeds down. The fuel pressure should hold within 5 psi for 1 minute. If the fuel pressure does bleed down too fast, do the hose pinching technique to figure out whether it's the pump, regulator, or injectors that are leaking. As an extra step, you can measure the ohms of your injectors and see if it's within the acceptable range. Now with the testing that I've done, I've come to the conclusion that this engine is definitely running a bit lean, and not just due to the lower side of the fuel pressure. More importantly, the original owner of this truck ended up swapping out the original 5.0 liter engine and installed a 5.8 liter engine. And I have confirmed that the ECM and wiring are still calibrated to the original 5.0 liter configuration, so this engine definitely needs a bit more fuel. For now, the best option for me is to install an adjustable fuel pressure regulator and boost the pressure to about 38 psi. This will also need to be done if you've modified your engine with aftermarket upgrades such as an intake, heads, or even a cam. So let's get this thing installed. Before you remove your regulator, release the fuel pressure using the tester gauge. Next, remove the vacuum line from the regulator. Remove the 2 bolts. And remove the pressure regulator. Be sure to install the new O-rings. And now install the new pressure regulator. And tighten it down. And now you can reinstall the vacuum line. Now start the truck and adjust the fuel pressure to where you would like it. Counterclockwise to lower the pressure, or in my case, clockwise to raise the pressure. Once you get it to where you want it, lock the screw and shut down the truck. Lastly, relieve the fuel pressure and remove the gauge. Alright, so we ran some fuel pressure tests and I hope you guys were able to figure out what was wrong with your vehicle. Now this truck was definitely running a bit lean, so I adjusted the fuel pressure up to about 38 psi and she seems to be running pretty good now. Now this is definitely not the best solution, but it will work for now, as I will eventually tune the PCM for optimal performance. But if this video helped you guys, give me a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.